Hi, I'm Judy Sedgman, and welcome to another edition of Innate Health, Creating Healthy Communities. Today's show is a little different because it's going to feature a talk that I gave recently at the Florida Commission on the Status of Women conference in Sarasota, Florida. I was asked to talk about women's wellness, and I talked about it from the standpoint of creating our own experience of our life. Often I'm asked, how do you do a short presentation and get your point across about the principles, about innate health? So I thought perhaps it would be worthwhile to share this with you. So please enjoy. Well, I'm Judy Sedgman, and I work in the mental health field, but I don't call myself a mental health professional. I call myself a mental health educator, and I can tell you why. Because if you are how many people here are in the mental health field, are psychotherapists or psychologists or one? Okay, well, I'm sorry. But no, I'm sorry to single you out. I didn't mean for there to just be one. But here's the difference between what I do and what the field defines itself now. If you talk to people who are in mental health, and I have a lot of very close friends who are, they can tell you everything you want to know about mental illness. They can tell you, the whole 485 diagnoses that are prevalent in the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual. They can tell you the pathology of people's suffering. They can tell you the pharmaceutical panoply of things that are available to help people. They can tell you I think there's several hundred different approaches to mental well-being that are used, cognitive behavioral, REM, all kinds of therapies. But they have a really hard time engaging in a conversation about mental health because the profession is trained, and I was trained too because I have a doctoral degree in educational psychology, so I know that. The profession is trained to address the problems of people that are struggling psychologically. So it's just like if you're a cancer doctor, you really don't have much to do with people that don't have cancer. And if you're a mental health professional, such as the field is defined now, you don't have that much interaction except personally and in your real life with people who are experiencing vibrant mental health. So when I got involved in the work that I do, which is under the rubric of Innate Health, INNATE. We do work in jails, and so a lot of people think it's inmate health, but that's only one of the many places we work. Innate Health, it addresses what defines the experience of true psychological well-being and peace of mind. And that's why I'm a mental health educator, because I don't teach people, I don't talk to people, I don't work with people about what's wrong. Deeper than that is what's right, and the strength that you have to draw from, and the resiliency that is innate to all people, that is our birthright as human beings. And it's an interesting field because I didn't start out in mental health. Trust me, I was a newspaper reporter. I was an investigative reporter for the St. Pete Times. I was an editor. I was a business person. I started a health practice management company, and I stumbled into this field. But when I stumbled into it and I saw the power of addressing mental well-being with people before they start having problems, it's a prevention and an educational tool. I saw that we could transform the world if people truly understood the power that they have to be mentally well no matter what. And I think to a large extent, there's a lot of things I could talk about that I talk with my students about that I'm not going to bring up, but I'm going to focus on one particular thing that all women are very familiar with. And that is the role of stress in our experience of lack of mental well-being. Now, it's very interesting, and for years, nobody talked about stress ever until 1950. Stress was an engineering term until 1950. And everybody in the field of engineering understood stress to be exactly what it is, the amount of pressure or force that a material could withstand before it broke. So it's a good term for what it is, but it was adopted by Hans Selye, who was a what they call a rat scientist at Harvard, who was doing research into the effect of various stressors on rats. And, I'm not going to tell you the cruel and brutal things he did to his rats, because that was before you had all these laws about not being cruel and inhumane to animals as well as people. And he discovered that the rats didn't like them and responded badly. Well, no surprise there. You do surgery on somebody with no anesthesia, they're going to not like it. And they got stressed, and they displayed stress. And of course, he translated into, well, this is what stress is with people. So he developed a whole theory of stress, which again, I'm not going to go into. But he wrote a book called Stress, and the cover of the book had stress in gigantic letters, black and white, jiggly letters. And so it was a big popular bestseller. And it led to an enormous amount of research. So one of the first things that happened is these two researchers started looking at what causes stress in people, and they developed this list of stressors. And the list of stressors, included going to the dentist, public speaking, death, death of a spouse, death of a friend, loss of job, loss of your house, difficulty with children, disruptions of all sorts in life. It was a long list. And they did a national survey. There's more than 40,000 people in this survey, and they ranked stressors statistically based on that survey. And it is still the basis of all these tests that you see in women's magazines in the dentist's office when you have, you say, you answer the question, these 10 things happened to you in the last year, and then it tells you how stressed you should be, because that ranking still prevails. It's sort of like Kubler-Ross taught us all how to grieve, and now everybody's freaked out if they don't follow the steps. Before that, people just felt really bad until they felt better. So now we have stress as a really big deal. And of course, what happens when there's a big deal in public life? The pharmaceutical industry becomes very interested in it. And you can actually track the growth in diagnoses, the number of diagnoses. The first Diagnostic and Statistical Manual was published in 1952, and it had, I think, 106 diagnoses in it. The most recent one was published in 2012, and it has more than, I think it's more than 800. So, and trust me, there's a drug for every one of them. But So one of the things that's happened, part of it is research. People have refined and refined and refined. And one reason, if you think about the logic of it, which I'll get to, one reason that there are so many fine distinctions now in the diagnostic possibilities of what's going wrong with people is because people have an infinite ability to think of anything and take it seriously. And the more people observe them, the more diagnoses there are. Now, let me explain what I'm talking about. Beneath the experience of any life situation is our thinking, our use of thought. Because the only way that something can come into your life is if it comes to mind. If you think about it, that when you have tragic accidents where people pull out into an intersection in front of a car that's coming, if they had seen that car, they wouldn't have pulled out. The car was there, their head was elsewhere. There are a lot of things in life. Our life is determined by what comes to mind moment to moment to moment. If I'm snubbed by a close friend and I don't notice it, I haven't been snubbed. Too bad about her. She failed. If you go to school because you're determined, okay, today's the day I'm going to beat up the bully, and the bully is absent, you can't do it. So if it's not on your mind, it's not in your life. That's the first thing. The second thing is we are the thinkers of our thoughts. Circumstances do not make us think a certain way. Now, we've been taught that that's not true. So there are all kinds of theoretical things out there. Well, of course, she was beaten up and sexually abused as a child, so naturally she can't form a lasting relationship, blah, 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 this and that, cause and effect. But the truth is, when you look at people as individuals, you realize that many people faced with exactly the same circumstances have entirely different responses to them. So if circumstances had the power, think about it, if circumstances had the power to make us think or act a certain way, everybody faced with the same circumstances would do the same thing. And if you even watch television news, you know that's not true. Every time there's a natural disaster, you know, there'll be one person in front of their house saying, oh, thank God, my dog survived, my family survived, we're together. You know, I've got friends, we can rebuild, this isn't the end of the world, and you'll have somebody else crumpled in their driveway weeping because they lost their wedding pictures. You know, now, I'm not making a judgment, I'm just saying these people think differently about life. And they're using their thinking differently to respond to a tragic circumstance. If you look at little children, because they're a good example of the natural way we come into life, they get over stuff right away. So I remember when I was a young mother, one of the most humbling experiences I had is the first time I left my baby with a babysitter. And I think she was about 7 months old, so that shows you how nerdy I was about, I don't want to leave her. We were going to a birthday party, and I was so flustered at leaving the baby with the babysitter that we walked out the door without the present. So we got about a half a block, and my baby was crying her eyes out when we walked out the door. So we got about a half a block, and my husband said to me, where's the present? I said, oh my God, I left it on the counter. He said, well, we got to go back and get it. I was like, oh no. So he pulls in the driveway, and I go back in the house thinking, oh no, I've got to face this crying baby again. She's there going, oh, hee, 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 hee. She's playing with a toy. You know, we've been gone for like 45 seconds. And I thought, oh, it wasn't about me. I didn't matter. It was her thinking, you know, something different was happening, and she could feel my tension. As soon as I was gone, she was on to her own life. So we realized that circumstances, we learn how to react to circumstances. It's a learned behavior. So when we talk about, you know, as Anila introduced me, she said, I've been working in this field basically called the 3 principles of mind, consciousness, and thought. And really what that amounts to is there is an underlying logic of human psychology which defines our psychological immune system, which is true. That's what principles are. You can't explain, as soon as you hear and understand them, they make sense, and everything else makes sense when you see it. It's just like the principles of physics or the principles of thermodynamics. When people discover a principle, you go, oh yeah, of course, that totally explains everything. I'm going to talk more about this. It's the underlying logic to our psychological immune system. Now, I've taught for the last almost 2 decades in a medical school. And so I had a lot of medical students that took my classes, and I wouldn't say necessarily with enthusiasm, but they took them if they wanted a master's in public health, because I don't teach the allopathic model. But I would say to them, look, all right, how many people can tell the difference between the living and the dead? They didn't have any problem. We might, but they don't. They know. And what is the difference? The dead are not alive, and aliveness is a feeling. It's a state. We see it. It's the light in their eyes. It's the feeling of aliveness. It's subtle movement. It's whatever. When that's gone, what we know is that there is nothing going on upstairs. The brain is flatlined, and that's one of the definitions of death. Now, one of the definitions of being alive is that there is brain activity, and you can tell that people are alive. From the time we come into life until we die, we're creating thought. Our ability to create thought is as natural to us as our ability to breathe, as our heartbeat, as our circulation, as our skin replaces itself, as cuts heal. You know, if you cut yourself, you don't have to communicate with your immune system. Say, hey, pay attention to that thumb, it's bleeding. You got to get there, get those cells there. The immune system knows what to do. There's an innate understanding within our body and soul that keeps us going. We were born to live. We were not born to have problems. We can create problems because we have free will, but we were born to survive, and we were given everything we needed to survive. We were given a beating heart, and unless there's a true birth defect, we were given lungs that inhale and exhale. We were given a circulatory system. We were given limbs. We were given what we need. Psychologically, and I don't know why it seems so difficult for people to say, then weren't we set up to remain at peace? To be able to keep our bearings, to have common sense, to see what to do next? Yes, we were. But we also have the will to override that. And when we override it, we get diagnosed. Now, and I'm not saying there aren't real things that happen inside people's brains. I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about this widespread issue, the people that have these, start thinking of themselves as damaged. So I'm going to state that, again, the principles of mind, conscious, and thought. Mind simply means we're alive. With the breath of life is in us. It's flowing through us. Thought means psychologically, physically, we use that energy, the breath of life, the spiritual nature of life to function. Our body is a dynamic, interactive mess of cells that are constantly in communication. So that's the energy as it plays out in the body. As it plays out in the mind, we create thought. And when we have created thought, we're set up to experience it as real. That's consciousness. We're conscious of what we created. Okay? So constantly, we're little thought machines, mind, conscious, thought. We just keep creating thoughts, seeing them as real, creating thoughts, seeing them as real. Now, until we learn that we can hang on to certain thoughts and see them as more real, or ruminate about them, or make them more important than they otherwise would have been, we live like children. Thoughts come and go. I'm upset, I'm over it. I wanted that toy, oh well, there's another toy. I don't like that kid, well, there's a different kid. And children are very flexible and very, they're just kind of moment to moment. If you've ever been around children, no one would deny that. Somehow, as we get older, we learn how to hang on to certain thoughts, and part of what we learn is by watching what the people we grow up with do. So a worrier is usually, if you ask them, what was your mother like? She was a worrier, because that's how we learn to worry, that's how we learn to stew and fret. But it's a learned use of our thinking, which we could change our minds about at any time. As soon as we see that we have that incredible power that is constantly at work. The principles are at work within us, that we are producing our thinking looks real to us. And when people know that, when they start to see that, they don't have to entertain negative thinking. They can, but they can see it for what it is and let it pass. And if your mind quiets, wisdom enters. The source of wisdom and insight in people is a quiet mind and a peaceful feeling. And that's available to you and you're one thought away from it every minute of your life. Now, if we could and my goal in life is to teach children this, because I've seen the power. I mean, I only have a limited time, so I can't tell too many stories, which is very frustrating to me. But I've worked with a lot of people in all walks of life. From juvenile delinquents to, troubled families, to people in housing developments, to wealthy executives, to people who are running big healthcare companies, to students. I've worked with people across all dimensions of life. It doesn't make any difference. We're all the same. It's the human race, and nobody's winning. Humanity is defined by the quality of our thinking. And when people are in a low state of mind with low quality thinking, they make very poor decisions. They go into survival mode. They'll do what it takes to get what they need. And that's what you see in the world today. You see what I would call a very low level of consciousness, of people who are totally unaware of how attached they are to their thinking, and how thinking is like smoke. It's not cement. Thoughts were meant to come and go and serve us. But as soon as we grab something and go, this is the most important thought in the world, and if everybody doesn't see it this way, then they're stupid, we're in trouble. And really, when you see what's going on in the world today, you see people living at a very deep level of fear and insecurity, very attached to a safety net of thought that they can't let go of for fear that there's nothing there if they do, or somebody else will prevail and they'll get hurt. Now, I have never known a person who finds peace of mind who is capable of harming anything. I've never known a person at peace within who could hurt other people, the environment, themselves, the process of governance. That's not a possibility, because when people are at peace, they don't take their own thinking that seriously, and they're able to hear and listen to other people, and they're able to interact, as we just saw, in neutral. Just, talk about what's there and make common sense decisions. Peace of mind is the gateway to peace on earth, but it's one person at a time. If suddenly, and I believe this with my whole heart and soul, and I work every single day towards this end, and now because we have all these wonderful tools, we have YouTube, we have, the ability to tweet things out and reach tons of people. I do webinars now with global webinars, where the last one I did, I opened up the screen and I had somebody from Dubai, somebody from Namibia, somebody from South Africa, somebody from Morocco, Spain, France, Switzerland, the Netherlands, England, Australia. I was like, holy cow, I was talking to the world. And what was the question? The question was, how do we find peace of mind? How do we find peace of mind? The answer is, peace of mind is your birthright. It's natural. To find peace of mind, you have to let go of your thinking and allow your mind to come to rest and natural flow of thoughts to resume. It's like, how do you restore the flow of a river when there's a log jam? The logs break free and then the water flows. When your thinking is less cluttered, less jammed up, peace of mind is a natural thing. And it's there for everybody, but not everybody accesses it. Doesn't mean it isn't there. It's like the sun. We could have 40 cloudy, not in Florida, but I used to live in Seattle. We could have 40 cloudy days, but we never wondered, where's the sun? We knew it was there, we just weren't seeing it. And that's the way our innate well-being is. It's there, we just don't always see it. We lose sight of it. We lose touch with it. And the pathway back to it is quietude. Now, the thing that I wanted to tell you about stress is that after stress became this very big deal, and a whole industry was built, multi-billion-dollar industry around dealing with stress. Well, a study was done in 1999, and the study was done by somebody I know named Ron Getzel, and it was done for the insurance industry, and the purpose of the study was to determine what were the underlying cost factors in the incredible growth of healthcare costs. And when the study was published, it shocked the healthcare field. Everybody was expecting, smoking, lifestyle, all the things that we know, the usual culprits. Stress accounted for 46% of the rise in healthcare. Depression, 50-some%. Stress and depression were the two greatest contributing factors to the rising cost of healthcare. Why? Because when people are stressed and depressed, they don't take care of themselves. They don't pay attention. They can't remember to take things like go to talk to somebody about insurance. They can't bring themselves to see a way out of their circumstances. So people who live at a high level of stress and depression, not only does it have a tremendous impact on the body, and that's a whole other topic, But if you're really interested in it, there's a great book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers by somebody named Robert Sapolsky, Sapolsky. He's a neuroscientist at Berkeley. He's fabulous. And this book explains how chronic stress affects every organ in the body. So it not only creates health problems, but it also creates a barrier within people's own thinking and their sense of certainty and their sense of knowing what to do and their sense of wisdom to see the direction to go to take good care of themselves and the others in their lives. So what's in it for us? You know, to return to our birthright of mental well-being, quality of life, love, communication with the people closest to us, the ability to see ourselves as whole and all right the way we are, not as damaged goods that somebody else has to fix. It's very surprising. I see clients individually at the Women's Resource Center in Manatee County, and as a mental health educator, they're always surprised when they come in. They've been to a lot of counseling and they start talking about their past, and I'm going like, why would I want to know about that? What's in it? Well, you know, explains everything. I'm going, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. It explains why you think about things the way you do, but it doesn't explain your life right now, because your life right now belongs to you. There's nothing wrong with you but for the way you think about what's probably wrong with you. If you could see that that's not important, you can't change the past, but you can direct the future. You can create the future. It's too bad about the past, but you know, a lot of people have very terrible pasts. A lot of people have wonderful pasts. It doesn't make any difference. Everybody in this moment now is on the edge of tomorrow and on the edge of finding peace of mind, redirecting their life, seeing things clearly, and seeing where to go. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Judy Sedgman. We hope to see you in the future when we continue with our series on innate health, how we can create our own experience of well-being and joy from within.